The town of Willow Creek was known for its picture-perfect streets, tidy gardens, and pets that were practically family members. On any given afternoon, you could hear the laughter of children mixing with the barks of happy dogs or the trill of singing birds from porches. But lately, something was wrong. Something no one could quite name. Alara knelt beside a golden retriever named Sunny, her fingers brushing gently over its fur. Sunny had always been the happiest dog in the neighborhood, tail wagging, tongue lolling. But now his eyes looked distant, and he refused to eat. "It's like he's grieving something," the owner, Mrs. Dalton, said, her voice tight with worry. Alara closed her eyes and inhaled deeply. She had always been different. Ever since she was little, animals seemed to trust her more than they trusted anyone else. But now, when she reached out to calm Sunny, she felt something strange, a heaviness, like a sigh in her own chest that didn't belong to her. "Hang in there, boy," she whispered. Sunny's tail thumped weakly, but his gaze stayed fixed on some invisible point beyond Alara's shoulder. By evening, Alara had seen 5 other pets, cats, dogs, even a parrot, all showing the same strange sadness. The local vet, Dr. Lennox, was doing everything he could, but he admitted to Alara over the phone, "We can't find anything physically wrong with them. No infection, no parasites, no toxins. It's baffling." On her way home, Alara's old bicycle creaked under her as she pedaled past Willow Creek Park. She spotted Vanya there, her childhood acquaintance and now the town's reigning pet influencer, holding a sleek black Pomeranian while live-streaming to her followers. Vanya saw Alara and smirked. "Oh look, it's Willow Creek's resident pet psychic," she said loudly enough for the camera to catch. "Alara, still using your little woo-woo touch? Any luck?" Alara's cheeks flushed, but she didn't answer. Vanya's followers flooded the chat with laughing emojis and sarcastic comments. Alara turned her bike around and rode home, her heart pounding. But that night, she heard it, a sound faint and almost impossible to catch. A whisper, soft as a breeze. And though no one else was in the room, she swore it came from the corner where her foster kitten was sleeping. "Help us." Alara froze, clutching the edge of her blanket. The next morning, Alara met Jax at the Willow Creek Cafe, the little diner with pastel curtains and coffee that was always just a little burnt. "You look like you didn't sleep," Jax said, sliding into the booth across from her. His practical, easygoing face softened as he saw her pale expression. "I didn't," Alara admitted. "I think I heard voices. Last night. From the kitten's bed." Jax blinked. "Voices. Not voices, whispers. Like words, but far away. I know how it sounds, but Jax, something's wrong with the animals in town. I can feel it." Jax leaned back, rubbing his jaw. "You've always had that connection. Remember when you found Mrs. Geller's cat just by sitting in the backyard and listening? You're not crazy. But if it's bigger than just one pet." Alara nodded, desperate for him to understand. Jax lowered his voice. "You know who might know what's happening? Mother Maeve." Alara frowned. "The woman in the forest? People say she's half mad." "They say a lot of things," Jax said with a shrug. "But she's been around forever, and they say she can cure anything, if you can find her." Alara's fork hovered over her plate. "Find her? She lives past the old creek road. No one goes that way anymore. But if anyone would know what's going on with the pets, it's her." As they spoke, the diner's old radio crackled, filling the air with static before settling on the local news. Residents report a surge in mysterious animal lethargy. Veterinarians remain stumped. Some say the pets just need more rest. Alara's skin prickled. It wasn't just her noticing. That evening, as she returned home, she found something at her doorstep, a single feather, glowing faintly blue in the dusk light. Her breath caught. It was unlike any bird feather she'd ever seen, soft, weightless, but somehow humming with energy. Attached to it was a scrap of paper with one word, "Come." The next day, Alara gathered her courage and set off for the forest, clutching the glowing feather. The further she went, the quieter the world seemed to get. The trees grew taller, the path narrower. The air was thick with moss and the faint scent of wildflowers. Birds watched her from the branches, their eyes following her as though they knew where she was headed. Every so often, the feather pulsed faintly, guiding her deeper. She stumbled over a root and nearly fell, but when she looked up, she found herself standing in a clearing. It was bathed in a golden-green light, as though the sunlight itself had turned solid. And there, in the center, sat Mother Maeve. Her hair was long and white, her back straight despite her age. Around her were animals, foxes, deer, even a wild boar, sitting calmly, their eyes bright and alert. "You came," Maeve said simply, her voice as steady as a church bell. Elara swallowed hard. I didn't know where else to go. The animals in town, they're sick, or sad, or something worse. I can feel it, but I don't know what to do. Maeve studied her, her gray eyes seeming to pierce right through Elara. "You have the gift," Maeve said finally, "but a gift is nothing without a guide." Elara's breath quickened. "Gift? You mean the way animals trust me?" Maeve shook her head slowly. "No, child. You hear what others cannot, and soon you will hear them all." Before Elara could respond, a wind stirred through the clearing, and for a brief moment, she heard it again. Dozens of whispers, overlapping, urgent, like a chorus just out of reach. She covered her ears, but Maeve only smiled sadly. "They're calling you." Elara sat on the mossy ground, staring at Maeve. "Calling me? Why? What do they want?" "They want you to be their voice," Maeve said softly. "And their healer. They are the whispering beasts, the old spirits of the wild. They have chosen you." Elara's heart pounded. "Chosen me for what?" "To mend what has been broken," Maeve said. "But power is never free." Maeve reached into a small pouch at her side and pulled out a stone, smooth and carved with strange symbols. "If you accept their gift, you will hear the true voices of animals. You will heal them with a touch. But once a month, under the full moon, you must bring them a token, a cherished toy, a symbol of joy, from one of the pets you have healed, and leave it in the moonlit glade. This is the price of their help." Elara hesitated. "And if I don't?" Maeve's eyes darkened. "Then their whispers will turn to screams, and you will wish you had never heard them at all." Elara's chest tightened. She thought of Sunny, of Mrs. Dalton's tears, of the empty stares of the pets she'd seen. "I accept," she said finally. The wind rose again, and the clearing shimmered. Elara felt something cold and electric pass through her, 1,000 tiny paws brushing against her skin. When it was over, Maeve nodded. "Then go. Your first whisper will come before the sun sets." Back in town, Elara's nerves buzzed like static. She barely had time to wash her hands when she heard a faint meow at her window. A stray cat, thin, matted, and trembling, sat there, staring at her with luminous green eyes. Elara opened the window and gently scooped the cat inside. "You poor thing," she murmured. She laid her hands on its back, remembering Maeve's words. The cat stiffened, then slowly, its body went limp, as though it had fallen into a deep, dreamless sleep. Then she saw it, not with her eyes, but in her mind, invisible paws, brushing the cat's fur, cleaning it, soothing it. A low, rumbling purr filled the room, though the cat's mouth was closed. When the cat woke, it looked at her, really looked, as if seeing her for the first time. Its eyes shone unnaturally bright. "Thank you," it whispered, the words forming clear as a bell inside her head. Elara gasped, pulling back. Her heart hammered in her chest. The cat leapt gracefully from her arms, gave her a slow blink, and trotted toward the door. By morning, word had already spread through the neighborhood. Elara healed the stray. "It's like a new animal." People started calling, asking if she could help their pets too. But as Elara sat on the floor, her back against the wall, she realized her life had just changed forever. And from somewhere beyond the walls of her little house, she swore she heard them again, the faint, otherworldly chorus of the whispering beasts. "One healed," they murmured. "Many more to come." Elara didn't need to advertise. Within a week, her small sitting business had tripled its bookings. People came from neighboring towns with pets that hadn't eaten in days, pets that had been despondent, aggressive, or lethargic for months. Alara would kneel, lay her hands on them, and feel that same strange drowsiness wash through both of them. The pets would sleep, sometimes for hours, and when they woke, tails wagged, eyes brightened, feathers fluffed. "You've got magic hands, girl," Mr. Patel, the grocer, exclaimed as his tabby purred in his arms. But it wasn't just healing. Something more was happening. One night, Mrs. Dalton called Alara, her voice trembling with excitement. "Alara, Sonny, just spoke." Alara nearly dropped the phone. Spoke. Not words exactly, but in his sleep he said something, like a whisper. I could almost understand him. He said, "Thank you. The shadows are gone." The next day, Alara overheard two children on the sidewalk arguing about what their dog said in his sleep. Mine said, "Run faster." One giggled. Mine said, "She hears us now." "Who's she?" the other asked, confused. Alara's stomach fluttered. The whispering beasts were working, yes, but this was no ordinary gift. And not everyone was happy. Vanya had built her entire online persona on being the pet queen of Willow Creek. Every week, she'd post glossy videos of her dog's modeling outfits, or her parrot singing pop songs. But lately, her views were down, and everyone was talking about Alara. "This girl is stealing my spotlight," Vanya muttered to her assistant while adjusting her ring light. "She's not even certified," the assistant replied. "No vet degree, no official training, and yet—" "Exactly," Vanya said, eyes narrowing. "We'll see what happens when people find out the real truth about her." That evening, she borrowed a client's key under the guise of checking in on their Pomeranian and installed a small hidden camera in the living room, pointed at the dog's bed. "If she's really doing nothing but sitting there with her magic touch," Vanya smirked, "this footage will be boring. But I bet it won't be." When the full moon rose, Alara felt it before she even saw it, a tugging in her chest, a pull toward the forest glade. She wrapped a small, worn chew toy in a piece of cloth and walked into the woods, heart hammering. The glade looked even more enchanted in moonlight. Fireflies danced lazily in the air. The ground seemed to hum. Alara knelt and placed the toy in the center of the glade. "I hope this is enough," she whispered. A fine mist rose from the earth, swirling like a silver ribbon. The toy dissolved before her eyes, vanishing as though swallowed by invisible hands. Then came the sound, faint, distant whispers, like dozens of voices, sighing with satisfaction. "Paid," they murmured. But just as Alara turned to leave, another whisper slithered through the trees, colder than the rest. "Don't forget again." Alara's breath caught. Again? Alara's gift grew stronger after that night. When she touched animals, she no longer just felt their emotions, she heard them clearly, as though they were speaking just beneath her skin. A greyhound whimpered about nightmares of running endlessly, but never reaching its owner. A parrot begged for a window seat. A goldfish wanted the castle in its bowl moved to the left. The townspeople were amazed. "You're like a miracle worker," they said. But then, something unsettling happened. A man came into Alara's shop with a scarlet macaw that wouldn't stop repeating one phrase. "She knows. She knows. She knows." The man looked uneasy. "He started saying this after you treated him last week." Alara crouched, locking eyes with the bird. "Who knows?" she asked softly. The bird tilted its head and whispered, this time not aloud, but directly into Alara's mind. "The bargain is never one-sided." Alara's blood ran cold. As her fame grew, so did the demand for her time. She worked morning to night, barely sleeping, barely eating. Jack stopped by one evening and frowned at the dark circles under her eyes. "You need to slow down," he said. "I can't," Alara replied. "If I turn people away, their pets suffer. And I think the beasts want me to help as many as I can." But with so many appointments, she forgot something crucial. The date of the next full moon. The night passed without an offering. And that night, Alara dreamed. She stood in the forest, but it wasn't glowing this time. The trees were black silhouettes. Eyes glowed in the darkness, dozens of them, circling her. "We're hungry," the whisper said. Alara turned, but the mist rose higher, thick and suffocating. A deep growl rolled through the clearing, a sound that didn't belong to any earthly animal. Alara woke up gasping, clutching her blanket to her chest. She looked out the window, heart pounding, and for just a moment, she swore she saw dozens of small paw prints leading away from her porch, vanishing into the mist. The morning after her dream, Alara moved through the house like someone walking underwater. Her hands trembled as she filled the pet's water bowls. When she touched the first patient of the day, a sweet, floppy-eared spaniel named Luna, the usual rush of peace didn't come. Instead, she felt a shiver, like brushing against cobwebs in a dark cellar. Luna whined in her sleep. Then her legs jerked, as though she was running from something. Alara gasped and pulled back, but the sensation clung to her fingers like static. "Is she okay?" the owner asked nervously. "She'll wake up soon," Alara said carefully, trying to mask her unease. When Luna woke, she didn't nuzzle or wag. She sat perfectly still, staring at the wall with wide, glassy eyes. Then, slowly, she turned and bared her teeth, not at the owner, but at Alara. "Alara?" the owner said, alarmed. "It's fine," Alara whispered. "She's just disoriented." But the hair on her arms was standing on end. Later that evening, Jax found her sitting on the back steps, hugging her knees. "I missed the offering," she said in a hollow voice. He crouched beside her. "Okay, so we go tonight." "It's too late." She shook her head. "They wanted it under the moon. I can feel it. Something's different now." And somewhere, just beyond the fence, something growled low and long. The phone call came at 2:14 a.m. Alara. The voice on the other end was frantic. It was Mrs. Dalton. "Sonny," he woke up screaming. I mean screaming. I didn't know dogs could even make a sound like that. He was clawing at the air at the walls. Then he looked right at me and... Mrs. Dalton's voice cracked into a sob. "And what?" Alara pressed, her stomach tight with dread. He said, "The darkness is coming for you." Alara gripped the phone until her knuckles whitened. Did you actually hear words?" "Yes," Mrs. Dalton wailed. Clear as day. In the silence that followed, Alara could hear Sonny whimpering faintly in the background. "I'll come by in the morning," Alara promised, though the thought of facing Sonny sent a cold current down her spine. When she hung up, she sat in the dark for a long time, unable to shake the feeling that the warning wasn't just for Mrs. Dalton, it was for her. Vanya sat cross-legged on her couch, staring at her laptop. The footage had been recording all night. Most of it was boring, Oliver the dachshund sleeping soundly, until exactly 2:13 a.m. First, the room darkened as though a cloud had passed over the moon, even though the blinds were drawn. Then Oliver stirred, whining softly. And then the air above him bent. It was subtle at first, like heat waves above asphalt, then sharper, clearer. Something moved there, invisible but heavy enough to disturb the space around it. Vanya's breath caught. On the screen, Oliver whimpered, his little legs kicking as though held down. And then, faint, barely audible, came a growl. Vanya clapped a hand over her mouth. The growl repeated, lower, layered, almost like several throats speaking at once. Oliver yelped, then fell abruptly still. Vanya sat frozen. For once, there was no gloating, no thrill of catching Alara in something scandalous. Instead, a chill crawled up her spine. "What is happening in this town?" she whispered. Alara couldn't take it anymore. She grabbed Chico's toy from the shelf, shoved it in her bag, and stormed toward the forest. The glade was not glowing tonight. The air was sharp and bitter, and the trees seemed to lean in closer than usual, their branches clawing at the sky. Mother Maeve was waiting. "You missed the moon," she said without turning. "I brought extra toys," Alara said, voice shaking. "I want to make it right." Maeve turned to face her, and Alara flinched. The elder's usually serene expression was lined with disappointment. "You don't understand, child," Maeve said. "This is not about payment. This is about trust. You broke the rhythm." Alara held out the toys anyway. "Then tell them I'm sorry," The clearing grew colder. The mist began to coil around her ankles. Maeve's gaze hardened. The beasts demand their due. From the trilline came a sound, a chorus of whispers, sharper now, hungry. Balance must be restored. Elara stumbled back, clutching her bag to her chest. Then take it, she cried. Take whatever you want. But she could feel the answer before she heard it. We will. The next day, Elara tried to carry on as usual, but something followed her. When she placed her hands on a puppy, a sweet, timid thing named Bella, the air turned icy. The puppy yelped and tried to bolt, but Elara's hands were stuck as though glued to its fur. A shadow unspooled from beneath the table, dark mist coiling like smoke. No, Elara whispered. The mist swirled faster, taking shape, long, spectral paws, a head with too many eyes, teeth like glowing embers. The puppy cried out, twisting, and the shadow lunged as though to drag it away. Elara's scream shattered the moment. She yanked the puppy into her arms and stumbled backward. The mist froze, then slowly, it retreated, slithering back into the corners of the room until only the faint smell of damp earth remained. When Bella's owner arrived, she found Elara pale, shaking, clutching the puppy like a lifeline. She's fine, Elara said hoarsely, but keep her close tonight. After they left, Elara sank to the floor, tears burning her cheeks. The whispers filled the room, deafening this time. You owe us. And for the first time since receiving the gift, Elara was no longer sure she wanted it. Elara barely slept that night. Every time she drifted off, she dreamed of the glade. Except this time, the clearing was filled with toys. Piles of them, rising like mountains, but all of them rotting, blackened, moldy, as though they'd been buried for centuries. Then came the sound of footsteps behind her. Mother Maeve appeared in the dream, her face illuminated by a pale, impossible moon. You thought you were buying peace, she said softly. But the beasts never heal for free. They feed as they heal. Elara's stomach twisted. Feed on what? Dreams, Maeve replied. The quiet joy, the unbroken trust of innocent animals. They gorge on it, leaving the pets lighter, calmer, but emptier. The toy was never the price. The toy was just the signal. Elara staggered back. So, every time You open the door wider, Maeve said grimly. And last night, when you missed the offering, you left the door unlatched. Elara could barely breathe. They want me now. Maeve's expression softened, almost pitying. Yes. And they will not stop until they take what they believe is owed. The dream dissolved, and Elara woke drenched in sweat. Vanya didn't wait. The footage she'd captured was too shocking, too perfect to sit on. That morning, she uploaded a short video titled, Is Willow Creek's Pet Healer Hiding Something? The clip went viral within hours. People watched over and over, as Oliver's room darkened on screen, as invisible shapes bent the air, as spectral paws pressed into the blanket. The growls were faint, but unmistakable. The comments flooded in. This is witchcraft. She's hurting those animals. This is demonic. I knew there was something wrong with her. By evening, a crowd had gathered outside Elara's little shop. Someone threw a rock at the sign. Others shouted for her to come outside and explain herself. Jack stood inside with her, his fists clenched. We have to leave, he said. I can't, Elara whispered. The pets, they'll suffer. The pets are already suffering. Jack snapped, then softened. You have to think about yourself. You're not safe here. Before they could argue further, the sound of sirens split the night. 2 police officers approached the shop cautiously, hands hovering near their belts. Elara Vance, one of them called. We need you to come with us. The officers barely had time to knock before the temperature in the shop plummeted. The lights flickered, buzzing like angry wasps. Then came the sound, dozens of whispers overlapping, climbing into a roar. The officers froze. What the hell is that? One of them muttered. From the corners of the room, the mist poured out, black and dense, smelling of wet earth and iron. It coalesced into shapes, their forms clearer than ever. Long-limbed, furred silhouettes with clawed paws and burning eyes. The whispering beasts had come. "They're here," Elara breathed. The beasts circled her, their voices merging into one terrible chorus. "You took. You gave too little. Now we take." Pain exploded in Elara's hands, a burning, searing light as though her veins were filled with fire. She cried out, collapsing to her knees. "Stay with me," Jack shouted, grabbing her shoulders. One of the beasts lunged, spectral jaws snapping, but Jax dragged her out of the way. Papers flew off shelves. The officers bolted, stumbling over each other in terror. The room shook. Glass shattered. The beasts closed in. In the chaos, Jax remembered something, a story his grandmother once told about a charm for restless spirits. He shoved Elara behind the counter and began to speak the words, barely remembering them, half prayer, half incantation. "Elara, focus on me," he shouted. "Not them. Me." The beast snarled, their forms warping, resisting the pull of the words. The light from Elara's hands intensified until it was blinding. "Stop." Elara screamed, afraid the magic would consume Jax. But Jax finished the last line and slammed his hand onto the floor. A shockwave of golden light blasted outward, slamming into the beasts. For a moment, everything was silent. Then came a scream, not Jax's, not Elara's, but something ancient and furious. The beasts dissolved like smoke, leaving behind claw marks gouged into the floorboards. When the light faded, Jax was on the ground, pale and still, a dark mark spiraling up his forearm like a brand. "Jax," Elara cried, cradling him. He opened his eyes slowly. "Did it work?" "They're gone," she whispered. "For now," he said hoarsely. "But they'll be back. You have to finish it." By dawn, the shop was destroyed, glass shattered, shelves overturned, claw marks scarring every surface. The crowd outside had fled, but the rumors were already spreading like wildfire. Elara packed a small bag, her hands still faintly glowing, her heart heavy. "You can't stay here," Jack said from the couch, his voice weak but steady. "They'll come again. And next time, they might take you with them." Elara nodded. She knew he was right. She left Willow Creek before sunrise, leaving only a note on the shop door. "Thank you for trusting me. Take care of your animals, and listen to their dreams." Months passed. The town eventually calmed. Pets no longer needed healing. They slept soundly, though sometimes they would wake in the night and stare at the woods, ears pricked, as if listening. Years later, a child walking near the forest told her parents she heard whispers in the wind, a woman's voice, soft and kind, calling a name no one recognized. And in the moonlit glade, under the watchful trees, a faint, glowing toy appeared, a new offering from someone who still walked between two worlds. The end.